Alrighty, so Matt Walsh apparently cut a video in which he talked about his 5 most overrated films. I want to go through that because there's a lot I agree with Matt about, but his film takes are some hot takes.
Today we're going to run down a list of the 5 most overrated films of all time. Now, this is the definitive list. There can be no argument, no discussion. We should turn off comments on YouTube because this list is so verifiably correct that there's really nothing to talk about. Now, one thing to remember as we proceed is this: overrated does not mean bad. So I'm not saying that the films on this list are bad. Some of them are, but not all of them. Overrated just means that they aren't as good as people make them out to be. Their reputation is greater than the actual product on the screen. So,
okay, stop it there for a second. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we have the standard correct, okay? I'm not mischaracterizing his standard. His standard is not the film is bad. It's that people think that the film is like a 10 and the film is like a 4, right? That, like, my list of most overrated films includes things like American Beauty. Best Picture, 0.
Number 5, Shawshank Redemption. Now, this is not a bad film. It is, in fact, it's a pretty good film, but it has gained the reputation of a cinematic masterpiece, mostly because millennials grew up watching the movie on TNT, where it aired approximately 46 times a week. And Shawshank it's a fine story. It's a well-told story, but it's also incredibly cliched, overwrought, quite cheesy, extremely predictable. Every character is a walking archetype. Every story beat can be seen from a mile away. The movie doesn't do anything new or different with the prison drama format, except sanitize it. So Shawshank is to prison movies what Remember the Titans is to football movies. They're both massively overrated. Not even the best versions of their particular subgenre, much less are they in the conversation for the greatest movies of all time. My biggest problem, though, with Shawshank is that the inmates are all the nicest, most decent human beings you could ever meet, minus the 2 who are rapists.
Okay, we can stop there. Okay, so he's right about the plot. Obviously, the plot is basically uber religious but corrupt warden versus a bunch of really sweet and nice inmates who may or may not be rapists in the outside world, but inside they're really actually quite good people. He's right about that. That's a good critique. As a film, it is a very, very effective film. And when he says that there are better versions of this in the genre, in like the prison genre, are we talking here? What are like the best films in the prison genre?
Hi there. How are you sleeping? Good?
I'll say this is better than Cool Hand Luke. Again, he's making an audacious claim. If he just wants to say Shawshank is overrated, I'm with him. If he wants to say it's one of the most overrated films of all time, I don't know, man.
Number 4, Toy Story. Now,
again, this is insane.
A good film for what it is. It's one of the best kids' movies in the last 3 decades. It's just not good enough to warrant 3 sequels with a 4th on the way.
The sequels are better than the original.
My main problem with Toy Story is the villain. Sid, who's the supposedly evil child living next door in the first Toy Story film. But what is Sid's great crime? Like, what did he do wrong? He takes apart his toys and reassembles them. This makes him a bad person? He didn't know the toys were alive. So how could you blame him for that? He thought they were inanimate objects. How can we blame him for his treatment of inanimate objects? Like, if it turns out that my chair is actually alive, am I suddenly a scumbag for sitting on it all these years?
Okay, so first of all, it is the most predictable thing in the world that Matt finds sympathy with Sid.
And I'll tell you this, I believe him.
Yes, I do actually think that treating your children to care and respect for the things they have been given is a good moral principle. Now, it's kind of a weird moral principle, but I think it actually matters. Let's put it this way. If I bought my son a toy and my son promptly took it out into the backyard and blew it up, I would be a little mad. Also, Sid destroys these toys in the most perverse ways. This isn't like a creative genius over here. He isn't repurposing an old phone to turn it into like E.T.'s machine that phones home.
Meanwhile, Andy forms very unhealthy fixations on his toys, never does anything interesting or creative with them. And there's nothing wrong with a child having a toy, but it's a bit overboard. Okay, you're a little bit too old to be this attached to your toys, Andy.
Wait, hold on. How old does he think Andy is in this movie? Andy, I think in the original movie is like 6. Yeah, that's a bad take. That's a truly terrible take.
Number 3, The Dark Knight. Now,
shut the f*** up.
Once again, good film. It just isn't the masterpiece that people make it out to be. Without Heath Ledger's great performance, this movie wouldn't be remembered for anything in particular.
Oh, you mean one of the key roles in the film is actually crucial to the film? Truly one of the stupidest arguments I have ever heard, Matt. Without the Academy Award-winning best villain in film history in the film, it's a different movie.
Ta-da!
I could do that with literally anything. You know, the New Testament without Jesus, not nearly as good.
Take Heath Ledger out of it, What does anyone remember about this movie? Who cares about this movie except for that? It's great by Batman movie standards, but it's not great as a piece of cinema.
And I thought my jokes were bad.
For example, how does the Joker wire an entire hospital with enough explosives to demolish it in 15 seconds without anyone noticing? This is a working hospital. People are in it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. How did you wired the whole thing? It's not even just like one part of it explodes. The whole thing is taken down.
Wait, that's it. That's his critique? His critique is like the practicality of wiring a building to explode? I mean, yes, that's correct. Gotham City's a show. They have a literal insane asylum where they keep people, and every 5 minutes people break out of the insane asylum. Also, has he been to a hospital recently? They're not really all that well run. I remember when my wife was in residency. Yeah, man. I mean, not that I would have committed a criminal act like the Joker, but I don't feel like it would have been that hard.
Now, the movie hopes that you won't notice that problem because you'll be distracted by like the moment in the hospital when Joker shows up in Two-Face's room wearing a surgical mask and isn't noticed by Two-Face until he takes the mask off. But even with the mask on, you can still tell that he has white face paint and black paint around his eyes. So how did Two-Face, the criminal genius, not notice that? Well, maybe it's because Two-Face isn't a criminal genius in this. He's a villain for about a half a scene, and then he's dead. It's like Christopher Nolan forgot to include Two-Face. They're about to put the movie out. It was like a week and the movie's gonna come out, and someone says, "Whoa, we forgot, we're gonna put Two-Face in this thing." Oh yeah, then they gotta go back and
What are you talking about? That's the entire character arc of Two-Face.
Doesn't change anything in the movie at all.
No, what? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Stop it for a second. Just stop it. That's so, oh my God. Oh my God. The entire plot point in the film is that Two-Face is supposed to be a representation of the fallen state of humanity, right? He goes from the hero to the villain. And the whole point is that all hopes for sort of cleanliness in Gotham City can be obliterated. And if you have too much of an idealistic view about what humanity is, which is what Harvey Dent has for most of the movie, then you end up falling, because once you fall, you really fall hard. This is a dumb take. I'm sorry. It's just it's a horrific take. It's a horrifically bad take. You know what, Matt? I can't even do this right now. I challenge you in person to a debate on The Dark Knight.
Let me ask you something. What if there was someone out there who...
Wow, look at the enthusiasm in the ad read. God, he's not even good at that. Let me show you how real ad read is done right now. We'll get to more of this in a moment. First, you need to wake up feeling dialed in and ready for anything. Our friends at Black Rifle Coffee have you covered. Head to blackriflecoffee.com right now. Shop 30% off for Veterans Week this November 8th through the 14th. Each of their coffees was roasted right here in the United States by a veteran-led team of experienced coffee graders obsessed with bringing you the perfect cup of coffee. Black Rifle Coffee Company is veteran-founded and veteran-run. They take pride in serving coffee and culture to people who love America. Every purchase you make with Black Rifle Coffee helps them further their mission to support veteran and first responder causes. With a huge selection of dark roast, light roast, everything in between. You also need to check out their gear. Black Rifle has a massive lineup of tees, hoodies, mugs, top shelf brewing gear, and more. Everything Black Rifle creates, from mugs to graphic tees, are made with patriotic designs you're not going to find anywhere else. A portion of every single purchase you make with them goes to support veteran and first responder causes. From getting funding and equipment to first responders and helping veterans fight cancer, your money goes a long way toward giving back to people who serve our nation. Head on over to blackriflecoffee.com right now. Save yourself 30% on America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com. Get 30% off blackriflecoffee.com.
Number two, Marvel movies. All of them. The whole Marvel movie canon, they are all overrated because they're all rated as being at least better than cinematic slop, which is what
I can't. He has me there.
All bad. Like every single Marvel movie is bad. There's never been a good one, I hate to tell you.
The original Iron Man is really, really great. So the original Guardian of the Galaxy was a real breath of fresh air. Ant-Man is wildly underrated to me. Doctor Strange 2016, again, enjoyable. And Thor Ragnarok is just pure silly. Oops. Well, consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. However, I was asked in that video to rate which are the best Marvel movies, not Marvel movies versus all other movies.
Number one, the most overrated film of all time is Star Wars. It's fine. It's decent. It's not deserving of the worshipful praise it receives, and it certainly does not warrant the 10...
It saved Hollywood, literally saved the entire industry. Fox Century was about to go bankrupt, and they put out Star Wars. The theaters were dead. No one was going to the theater. Star Wars saved the entire movie industry. Okay, by the way, he's talking the entire Star Wars series, right? He's not just talking about like the original Episode 4 Star Wars, which is in fact a great movie. He is talking about like including Empire. Empire Strikes Back is one of the 5 best movies ever made. What in the actual
The original Star Wars movies were solid B movies.
That's impossible!
The acting's pretty poor, especially by Mark Hamill. Really, really bad acting. The script is kind of cheesy and derivative in parts. And I say derivative not because, everything after Star Wars is ripping it off, so I'm just used to it. Even Star Wars, when it came out, was derivative of sci-fi that had come before it. It actually was not doing anything all that new.
What is he talking about? That's not even remotely true. I mean, first of all, the special effects unprecedented for the time. Like, blew everybody out of the theater. It's the most transformative movie in terms of effect since The Wizard of Oz went into color. As far as the acting, I'm not a huge fan, but that's also the character. Okay, the whole point of the original Episode 4 Star Wars is that Mark Hamill's character, Luke Skywalker, is a whiny teenager.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
I said, shut up, you bucket of bolts.
And he has to learn that he actually is important when he does his duty. Alec Guinness is awesome. Harrison Ford in these films is iconic. Darth Vader is probably the single greatest movie villain in history, particularly in Empire. Palpatine is another amazing movie villain. Yoda's an amazing character. Like, what is he talking about?
And but that's fine. Darth Vader is a 12-year-old boy's idea of a scary villain. Like, he's not actually menacing, and he doesn't create real tension. Like, if I'm in a room and Darth Vader walks in, I'm not gonna be that scared. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not that scared.
Okay, can you pause it for a second? He would literally strangle Matt within the first second of meeting him.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm not that scared. You got again with the cape. The first thing I'm thinking is, like, why are you wearing it?
Darth Vader walks in and force chokes him in the first 5 seconds of the film, as he does to the first rebel he sees when he walks into frame.
A bunch of 12-year-old boys watched those movies when they came out in the 70s and 80s and loved them, which is understandable. But then they grew up and they insisted that the movies are still as great as they remember them being when they were 12. And that's the problem. Nothing is as good as you thought it was when you were 12, okay? You were 12.
Okay, stop that for a second. First of all, how do I know that those movies are still great? Because my 10 and 8-year-old still love them. Like, that's a weird take. That's like saying any children's movie that you watched and enjoyed when you were a child is no longer relevant because now you're an adult. So now you have to watch, like, The Whales of August or something all day.
Now, you all need to grow up and realize that.
The answer is never. Do you hear me? Never, ever.
One of the great scores of all time, by the way. Honest to God. Like, okay, so what in the what? What? Just what? Okay, so terrible takes all the way around there, with the possible exception of the Marvel movies there from Matt. Oh, Matt. Well, I guess we'll have to do this in person. That Dark Knight take. Whew. You know what, Matt? I can't even do this right now. I challenge you in person to a debate on The Dark Knight.